JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has a lot of parts that are all really, really different. Picking a favorite one out of the series' history says a lot about what kind of fan you are, and what you look for in JoJo as a whole. Like how fans of Part 3 only watch the anime and are just in it for the auras. Fans of Part 4 probably only watch the anime too, but are more interested in the slice of life atmosphere and the extra detail the cast gets overall. And people who think Steel Ball Run is the best part like the dynamic that horseback riding added to stand fights and don't mind the terribly written ending. Alright, that might be a bit excessive, but seriously, Part 7 had the single worst ending to any JoJo part by far, even including the one where everyone died. Which kinda sucks, because Part 7 had some of the best characters, fights, and stands in the entire multi-decade run of JoJo that preceded that ending. But no matter how good these things are, none of them can take away from the single focal point of awful writing that overshadows the worst retroactive rewrites and stand power changes Araki has ever done. He's known as Dio from Another World, aka the final encounter that has nothing to do with anything, which is a phrase I don't use lightly. Seriously, after the well-done build-up of the Mastermind Valentine and the final fight with him that's 5 volumes long, 5 really good volumes, the plot starts to wind down and resolve all the questions that are left until, whoops, looks like a different Dio that Valentine decided to hire from a different dimension just showed up and stole all the corpse parts. Now, before anyone says, yeah, but the fight was really cool, right? Yeah, I'll concede the fight's mostly fine. I don't have issue with that. The issue is that instead of resolving Steel Ball Run's plot, Araki stapled in a random Dio fight that pretty much undid the years of writing he was doing. Why do I say that? Well, let's go over what Steel Ball Run is from a story perspective, so we can figure out why this moment is the complete antithesis to what Part 7 is all about. In barest terms, Steel Ball Run is about a young man named Johnny, who's just lost his extraordinary life after being recently crippled, and now lives dreaming of some way to get his former freedom back. During this, he meets a mysterious man named Gyro that holds a great power called the Spin, and is also the best character. Johnny teams up with Gyro so he can learn about the Spin, and they both go out on a great cross-country race, where they learn more about themselves, their powers, and eventually become strong enough to defeat a great evil that threatens the world they know. These events describe a very broad set of tropes called the hero's journey, the concepts of which stretch back thousands of years into the history of storytelling and are found in an exceedingly large amount of fiction today. Some examples of such stories are Star Wars, Harry Potter, The Lion King, The Matrix, just about every YA book ever written, and even my book, a link of which is available below in the description. Anyway, let's just forget shilling. Let's go back to JoJo. Anyway, the label Hero's Journey refers to the journey a specific character takes to become, well, what else? A great hero. The hero of Steel Ball Run is, of course, Johnny Joestar. As he's the main character, the story is centered around him. He grows the most of the main cast, and he's the one that triumphs over Valentine in the end. Some have argued that Gyro shares this role, or even argue that he's the real main character, but he fits much more into the mentor position than as the actual hero, on account of his frequent lessons of the Spin, and the fact that he doesn't grow as much character-wise, at least when compared to Johnny. So what does all this have to do with the ending of Steel Ball Run being bad? Simply put, it's because this fight is the exact antithesis of what the hero's journey is about. At this point in the story, Johnny has already finished his tribulations. He's learned everything Gyro could teach him about the Spin, he's reached the maximum potential of Tusk, he's defeated Valentine, who was considered invincible with Love Train. And what does he get for accomplishing all that? He loses hard to a random Dio from another dimension that he never even met before. And when I say lose, I mean that as clear-cut as possible. Dio outsmarted Johnny, outplayed him at every turn, and nearly ripped him apart with his own Act 5. Then he just rides off to cross the finish line first, with the corpse parts in hand, while Johnny's trying to keep his atoms from drifting apart. Heroes' journeys don't do things like this to characters at the end of the story. Harry Potter does beat Voldemort at the end of the last book. Luke Skywalker does beat Darth Vader before the credits, and helps with the Emperor too, I guess. This is because people don't want to see the heroes that have been built up for so long lose just when they reach the end. Sure, the audience wants the heroes to work hard and meet challenges, but they're expecting that these tensions and challenges they go through will be overcome by the end. That's why characters dying is so rare in certain forms of media, because audiences get invested in characters and they don't want them to suddenly drop dead from a heart attack or get crushed under a steamroller. Now, Johnny doesn't die from this, but seeing all his training and lessons from Gyro get beaten by a character we barely know functions in much the same way. It still devalues the years of build-up Araki was creating for Johnny just to have another Dio fight. In fact, looking at this fight within the context of the entire part, you quickly realize that nothing happened required Dio's appearance at all. Really think about it. He shows up, takes the corpse parts, beats Johnny in a fight, wins the race, but he immediately dies before he can carry out Valentine's plan. So, in the grand scheme of things, all he did was keep Johnny from winning, which is something that didn't really need a fight to justify. I mean, he fought Valentine for 5 volumes. Araki could have just said the race ended when he was doing that, or that the encounter with Love Train delayed Johnny too long to catch up to Poco Loco and the others. Or Araki could have just had him return to the race in time, but still lose to an unrelated reason. As a writer, Araki can shift things around however he wants, but shoehorning in a last-second antagonist isn't a very good way just to make Johnny lose. This isn't to say that unhappy endings can't be done well in a story at all, but the ending still has to settle everything in a satisfying way, which Araki already did with the Valentine fight. So putting in an extra antagonist right afterward just creates a mess of the plot when everything had already just been cleaned up. So, yeah, the ending has issues, but even though they make for significant problems, they don't make Steel Ball Run horrible. It just makes the ending pretty unsatisfying for anybody that's invested in Johnny as a character. And given how much of the party survived to the end of Steel Ball Run, there weren't many other people to be invested in. It's a pretty bad mistake for sure, but it's not going to ruin half a decade of great chapters. Just like how the amazing parts of Steel Ball Run don't make the ending better, the bad parts of this ending don't ruin the better parts that came before it. Hey, whoever ended up watching this. This is my first real video, so if I screwed something up, just let me know in the comments and I may be able to fix it next time. By the way, that plug for my book was super real and super scummy. Half the reason I made this channel was to shill for that, so if you like the character dancing on screen right now, that's the protagonist of that, and I'll put a link to that story in the description, or maybe an annotation on screen. Also in the description, I'll stick sources or everything, including the scans for Steel Ball Run. Also a link to Goobermation, who made this little gif here. Yeah, they're pretty cool, so yeah. Thanks for watching, and I'll make another thing later.